It's that time of year, day after Christmas. In some countries, it's called Boxing Day. But for me, it's a day of massive organization. I've been working on this the last few days, but my work table became absolutely unmanageable. If you can imagine, the last two-thirds of it just covered with a towel to keep the cats off of it while I was knitting. Anyway, it's time to organize this table because in the next month or so, I will mostly put knitting away. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that completely or if I'm going to just make small things and just keep stocking up. Because one thing I did not do this last year, and partly because it was just so hot here in Southern California, was get started on knitting in the April, May timeframe. It was just too hot. So I really didn't start until August. And that's just not enough time to get things done in a good time frame. So I'm going to make sure that I do get started on knitting in the April, May timeframe while I'm still quilting, because quilting will start January, February. QuiltCon happens. It's Road to California here in Southern California in mid-January. So once that hits, my quilting fever will be back. So I plan to hit that hard. But again, having things ready for winter, for the October, November, December time when people are buying more winter things, is important. And that means I need to go back to the drawing board, rethink the things I'm going to knit, and hit that hard. As far as the quilting goes, I'm going to go back to doing some quilting in the round in my version of quilting in the round. So when we get to that, I'm going to try to do some, not how-to videos, but see if I can piece together some videos that show how I go about doing that. I get a lot of questions on it. And it's not really that hard. It's just a very different way of doing it, and I did it by accident. So anyway, here we go. I love notebooks. I have lots of them of many different sizes, but I keep different things in different notebooks. I have a really tiny one this size that I keep in my pocket at work when I am kind of in charge of a group of people, and I have my notes in there. I can just pull them out of my pocket. It's very handy. Otherwise, I stick to ones that are usually like, this is 3x5 and a 5x8. Anyway, I have different things in different notebooks. So I will be organizing my notebook that has my sales in it and my receipts, so that come January 1st, I can close all that out for 2025. I also have a notebook that I keep my notes in from when I am knitting, custom knitting something. That's Oscar in the background, in case you've never met Oscar, my cat. And say hello, Oscar. Can you move out of the way? Thank you. You know how cats are. If they're not the center of attention, they will make sure they are the center of attention. I also keep a notebook for quilt notes. And on my iPad in YouTube is where I have categories of videos that I use to remind myself about skills, as well as remind myself about some techniques I need for the business side of things. I do love YouTube. I think it's one of the greatest things ever. And I'm always so impressed when young people are using it to teach us old folks new things or new ways to do things that we've been doing a long time. So I've been very impressed. All right. I do have to put this chunk of yarn away. This is Noro. I love this. How Nui. I think I would call it almost a worsted weight, maybe a little chunkier. It knits up kind of like a Lopa Pesa weight. It's fabulous. This is unscoured, so my cats love it. They just stick their nose in it because it probably still smells like little sheepies. And you'll find little teeny bits of grass and things still in it, which I find very charming. Some people don't like that, but I find it charming. Anyway, I do need to put this back into a tub. and I will do that in a bit. I keep all of my notions for knitting in one of the bags. I used to be a floral photographer, and I had a bunch of these bags made. So I have a few of them, and I use them. I use Altoid tins to keep my stitch markers in. I have this great zipper compartment that has my measuring tapes in. I do have one specifically for knitting, but I keep those in there. I have these cords that I use to put my knitting on. You know, these are not the fancy cords you can buy from knitting shops. These are the kind of cords, they're kind of hollow, actually, yeah. You use to make the little beaded bracelets and things. Yeah, it was a lot cheaper to buy those. So I use those. I have some other artifacts. So if you've been around for a long time, you're going to recognize these. I have had this Susan Bates knitting needle, what would you call it? Where you can put your knitting needles, poke your knitting needles into it so you know what size they are. I've had this since I was probably 13. I've also had this from Patternworks, Rip Patternworks, but this was also a yarnograph to show you how many skeins you needed for things. It also had a graph on the back, which I found terribly fascinating. How to read a knitting chart. This is a chunk of one. Again, I've probably had these since I was 13. I think. Maybe Patternworks wasn't around when I was 13, but I feel like I had them for a long time. Anyway, keep all my things in there. So that is going to go into, excuse me while I bend over and grab a bag. This bag, because now I can get back to the Fair Isle vest I was working on before I picked up a sweater to knit for my son for Christmas, which is still blocking, by the way. I had to reblock it. So it will be ready tomorrow. Better late than never. So I will show this progress to you the next video. Oh, in case you always wonder where I work. I make magic. And every year, Disney gives us these great holiday pins. So I have them all on one of the original canvas backpacks from when Galaxy's Edge first opened. That was before I made magic in Galaxy's Edge. So now that's where I make magic, on the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. You can also find me on Rise of the Resistance, either as a First Order Lieutenant or one of the Resistance crew. And for the next week and a half, you can find me in Toontown or on the parade route by Small World. So if you're in the park, look for me. I'm usually there at night, not usually during the day. Anyway, that was an aside. So, going to be putting that on my bag today. I do keep up on my bills and things. I have that in my phone calendar for every time I need to pay a bill, because, you know, right frontal lobe damage from a car wreck. I'm not going to say old age, because I'm not even 65 yet, and I refuse to bow to the old age thing. Anyway, so I keep calendars. I just got another new calendar for marking my work schedule. I keep this next to my door. This was from Daiso. I love Daiso. There's one right across the street from my apartment, and it reminds me of living in Hawaii, so it's a little bit of the Aina. But I got this cute one. It has cats on every page. It's very holiday-oriented. I think it's the year of the horse this year in the Chinese calendar. Anyway, I think this is a Japanese calendar, however. So I keep track of my work schedule. My son can see that if he has questions about when I'm working. I do also have a leather-bound notebook. I have not done daily journaling for a while. I go back to it when I feel the need to express myself in private, maybe get some thoughts out or just some frustrations out. It's part of what I really, really focused on when I was first in sobriety, and it became a really good tool for me to exercise some of those frustrations and demons on paper. I could discuss it with my sponsor, but I don't do it as regularly as I used to. That's not a bad thing. I don't feel the need to, but I do keep it. I get rid of them. You can see I'm almost done with this particular book, I suppose. And I read through them before I get rid of them, see if there's anything poignant, something I want to save, something I want to revisit. So it's kind of like my end of year thing, even though I haven't been consistent with this since July. So, going to get back to that. That's one of my 2026 things. Not a resolution, just I know that sobriety is something that it's a work in progress, always. So, 10 years sober, grateful for that. I want to keep it going. All right. Went to Daiso today. Yes, I know I just talked about Daiso. I picked up a few more of these small notebooks. These are the ones, I don't know if you can see it. It's really, really light. It's got the little dots all across it. I can't remember what that's called. Anyway, so they are not selling this particular notebook anymore, I don't think, and I have a bunch of them of different sizes, so I picked up some because this is a really great size. Like I said, I use it at work. I also picked up some flake sticker sets, some Happy New Year. I give these away when I send out packages. I haven't done it consistently, but that's another thing for 2026. I want to be more consistent. I've often thought about maybe making my own stickers, but I don't really know what I'd put on a sticker. I am not an artist. I do not draw. I can draw one thing that I need for something if I'm mocking up a design, but I couldn't draw to save my life. I did pick up these though, and I'll show you why. Because I am thrifty. I use what I have. So this box is what I have kept things for sewing in, and it keeps the cats out, but I need to do a better job of just covering it so that they don't get into it. I collect Starbucks mugs. I find them from time to time. I have a whole bunch. I use these when I am cutting out a pattern. I lay these on top instead of buying expensive pattern weights. Push comes to shove, I can always drink out of it if I wash it. So these are just the right size to go in here. I have a few more behind my sewing machine, so I need to put them into... Oh, where's everything? I know. I need to put everything away. And this is part of just getting ready for the quilt time, but also keeping things neat and tidy on my desk. I keep a cup of quilt pens. I use these also for, sometimes I use them when I'm blocking a sweater, but I keep these handy because I use them a lot. And then I also have the clips that have become really popular. I never thought about using them before, but these are great. I use those to clip fabric together. If I'm doing something really tight and specific that I absolutely have to have everything lined up, I use pins because I still feel like pins are more precise. So I do have a pin cushion, and I made this pin cushion out of some fabric, and I stuffed it with some stuffing, and I've had this for a while, probably 4 or 5 years. Not a whole long time, but 4 or 5 years. So I just keep this around. It's a nice little pin cushion. I keep a little container. This is a little lotion container that I got at Daiso. It's kind of cute. See? I keep my sewing needles and a few little pins, very, very specific sewing needles in here that I use all the time, so I can grab those quickly. And then in this other cup, again, it's a Starbucks cup, I keep spools that I use all the time. So I usually have black and white yeah, black and white in there. And then if I'm quilting, I will keep the spool of whatever quilt thread. This is Coates and Clark Rip Joanne Fabrics. Rip Joanne's. Yeah, so I keep that in there. I am going to put some of these away, though, because I'm not using them. Now, where do I keep my bobbins? I keep my bobbins in Altoid tins. So one of them is marked light, and the other one is marked dark. So I keep whites, yellows, whatever. If I find the need to rewind a bobbin, I usually don't take the thread off. Unless the thread maybe was not wound really well. I just wind over it. I'm not, you know, sometimes people get just way too crazy about that stuff. But anyway, so that's what I'm doing today. I am reorganizing. My sewing machine has been set to the side on this table so I could knit more comfortably. But come the next month or so, this will convert to a quilting station again. Now, I did move my table, so to the left of my table is where the cats sit to look out the window. But if I need to set up an auxiliary table so that a larger quilt can lay on that, well, the cats are just going to have to wait until I'm done. So that's my reorganization. It's a little bit of what I'm doing today. I am going to show you what my son's sweater looks like, show you the progress on the Fair Isle vest that I had started before working on his sweater, and then some ideas I have on using some more of the yarn for smaller projects. I just really am not sure what to do for small projects. It seems like people's whims on what they want to buy that is handmade just changes from season to season. I know hats with pom-poms on it were big 2 years ago. And then it shifts. Socks are something that are more timely to make. And if you were to try to sell socks, people just wouldn't be able to afford them with the time it takes. So there are just some things I'm looking at. If you have any ideas or suggestions, I would love them, whether it's something that's quilted or something that's knitted. I have been getting requests about quilted jackets again, but that ship has sailed. The market is saturated, and I just don't see it as something that I am going to spend my time doing. And no, I don't do custom orders because there are a lot of headaches that come along with custom orders. But I will tell you one thing I am going to work on very seriously over the next couple of days and see where I get with it. I have some things that I need to know before I work on a knitting project, for example. Also before I work on a quilt project, but more specifically a knitting project. And I think it could transfer over to quilting or crocheting as well. But a notebook that you could keep track of your project in that also has resources in it. I know a lot of people go online for that kind of stuff, but if you had something you could scribble on, because I'm a scribbler, I like to pull out a piece of paper, I like to do it by hand, and I think there are a lot of other people like me from all ages that do that as well. So if you have any thoughts on that, let me know, or any questions. I would love to answer them. I look forward to talking to you again, and it will be soon. And I promise in 2026, I am not going to fail for the third year in a row. I am going to be consistent with posting, even if it's just for a couple of minutes for a quick update. So I appreciate you guys hanging in with me, and I will see you before 2026. I'll see you one more time at least. Bye.